Hi guys, it's Young and One. My name is Jaleesa, and this is my wonderful husband Antoine. Sorry that we didn't come to you guys last week, but we had a lot going on. But this week we're going to do something a little differently, and we're going to address a couple of questions from our viewers. And the first question is, do you think you two got married sooner in order to have sex? Not to say that that's the only reason why you're married. And that's a great question.
That's a wonderful question. Before we get started today, I want to thank that viewer for asking that question because I'm pretty sure somebody else wanted to ask that question, but you were bold enough to ask it. So thanks for doing that.
Thank
We
you.
commend you. But the answer to your question, no, sex was not uh, the reason why I married my wife. I'm speaking for myself now. Sex was not the reason why I married my wife, even though it played a major part. But the deciding factor was just showing my wife how much I valued her. Just wanting to honor her and being God's will, and just let her know that I'm okay with being committed to her for the rest of my life, and no need to prolong for that when you just know. And I was, just making sure just to assure her who she was in God and who she was to me, and what other better way than to honor her by going forth in marriage and not waiting on it.
Yeah. What I'll say is the sovereignty of God, He factors in all that we could have gone through. And so, in our time of praying and different things of that nature, He met our needs in accordance to His timing,
Right.
if that makes sense. And there's a stigma in the church that we don't really talk about sex and things of that nature. But naturally, if we knew 3 weeks in, literally, that we were going to marry each other, then God had already created this desire between
Yeah.
us. And so it was our job, as will be your job, to be man and woman enough to not put yourself in a position where you fall short. So the Apostle Paul tells us to flee from sexual temptation,
Mm-hmm.
which means don't play with fire, because if you do,
You will get
you're
burned.
gonna get burned. And so we learned that, like, we had to stop putting ourselves in positions where it was possible for us to fall short. And so even though in our minds we didn't want to fall short, or we knew we weren't going to fall short, we still had to ward off the temptation. And so it's better if you just not put yourself in that position. And I always think about how Jesus said the spirit is willing but the flesh is weak. And he wasn't
Got it.
talking about sex, but we can use that in that sense. Like, a lot of us, we want to do right, but sometimes our flesh is weak. But you have to control your flesh by the position and situations that you allow yourself to be in.
That's good stuff.
And I'll just say with us, since we didn't allow sex to be a factor, we were able to make a very, very, very serious commitment and decision with a clear conscience.
Without the manipulation of sex.
Yeah, like, sex can change a lot. It can complicate things. And I think if we did, you know, the timing, everything would have been off, because we wouldn't have heard God so clearly. And I think I said a few videos ago, like in April, I knew that I'm ready to get married, but
Right.
God said it wasn't time. And so if it was due to sex, then we would have probably gotten married sooner if that were the case. But, it was about so much more and much deeper.
And I want to touch on that piece you said about sex. Sex is sex, but it differs when you're in marriage and when you're out of marriage. Like my wife said, if we would have had sex before marriage, that would have been an emotion. And as you got married, sex becomes a spiritual connection. It's spiritual, and even though we knew we were supposed to get married, we didn't want to jump ahead and have sex where it could alter something, or
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying, where we couldn't go back to the pureness of what God wants to do
Yeah.
because we are now partaking in something that's away from His will.
Yeah. And let me minister to maybe someone who's been on the track of I'm not going to have sex and you falling short. It's just like if you've been on a fast and you end up eating something before you're supposed to complete the fast. Don't use that as an excuse to continue doing wrong. You can always get back on the track where you do
Right.
right. That's the beauty, of having a relationship with God, is that we can say, God, I'm sorry, forgive me, and he wipes the slate clean and you can start over.
Oh yeah.
And so, there were times when we weren't perfect, but what we had to do was say, God, get us back in this position where we can continue going forward in what you have called us to do.
Oh yeah.
And the thing I do not want to do is make it seem like it was so easy Like, we
Not at
never
all.
had to say God. I had an accountability partner, and I had to tell her, even if my thoughts went there, pray for me. Because I didn't want anything to hinder my relationship with my future husband or my relationship with God. Most importantly, my relationship with God. And so, what you have to do is stay prayed up.
Stay prayed
It's
on. And fellas, man, it's worth the wait, man. Before my wife came, I was sexually active, and
sexually.
I'm
No,
just keeping it
it's
real.
funny.
And prior to meeting her, she said, I'm waiting, to marriage. Well, I'm not having sex anymore until the person I marry. And then I was like, naturally, I'm like, well, I'm not about to wait. But I was in love with her, and I knew that this thing was bigger than us. I knew it was God's purpose. So that's going back to making adjustments to that person, or making adjustments to God. And
Yeah.
waiting was tough. It was very tough, but it's worth it. It was definitely worth it.
And since he addressed the men, I want to address the ladies. If a man really wants to be with you, he will wait. He will wait. If he really wanted to marry me, and clearly he did what was necessary to go forward. And so I say this from a position of, being someone who started to value myself even the more. Value yourself to the point where if this man wants to be your husband, he'll wait on God's timing when he says go forward.
Definitely.
There was a question. I want to propose, but I don't have enough money for a decent ring.
You know,
Anything you want to say to him?
um, well, the thought, really the saying, the thought is what counts,
The thought is what counts. Yeah.
which is
It's
true.
the thought that counts.
It's the thought that counts. Out. Worded it different, but we on the same page. Um, don't allow that to be your hesitation. You know, when you get in God's will, you can buy a different ring at any given moment, any given time. Just it's bigger than a ring. It's something
Mm-hmm.
that you're giving a wife, giving your wife to be. It's just a commitment. Like, it's saying words, it's saying so much when
Yeah.
giving her the ring. I just let them know how much you've grown, how much mature you are willing to do, or how much matureness you're willing to make to just be with this woman of God. It's just, don't allow finances to dictate
Yeah.
God's plan for you both.
And where there's a vision, there's provision. And
Yes.
so God will definitely make the way. I saw how my husband sacrificed to get me the ring that he thought I was deserving of. But I say that to say that even if I didn't get this ring, I knew that I would have what was, it's a symbol. That's all that it is. And at any given point, God's going to bless you. We believe that for you throughout the period of your marriage where you can upgrade. So
Mm-hmm.
I say to men and ladies, don't let something superficial stop you from going forth in what God is telling you to do.
Yeah.
So don't let the ring be the issue. I saw this picture with like this really, it was a really little ring, and it was like, if he proposed, would you say yes? If my husband gave me a little, I mean, I'm gonna be real. I might feel some type of way at first because I'll be like, okay, babe. But at the end of the day, it's bigger
Yeah,
than what's
it
on your
is.
finger. You can always upgrade. One more question. We want to get married, but we don't have enough money for a wedding right now.
Goes to show finances. Um, we didn't have a wedding.
Not a traditional
Not a
wedding.
traditional wedding. It was
We did
just,
have a wedding. We got married, but
we had a wedding, but it was just us.
yeah,
Us and God
and a few witnesses.
and a few
Look,
witnesses.
this is how in tune we were with God's voice, and I feel like as women, immediately when He proposes, we start planning like, oh, we need a year to do this and do that. But what if God is, and I'm not saying this is everybody's story or testimony, but what if God is saying He wants you married sooner than that? And so
Mm-hmm.
if you don't seek Him out for His timing, because I didn't go into planning mode. Like when my husband proposed, I was like, okay, God, I don't know what we're gonna do next. So literally, we woke up one morning
They made it happen.
and it was like today's the day. And I'll say for us, like he moved from the 7-5 to Richmond, and I was close to Richmond, and so naturally we wanted to be together. And so from us, and this is the sovereignty of God, from us wanting to be together as one, going forth in God's purpose, but also wanting to be in His will and not do anything outside of His will, which would be living together and we're not married. I believe that's why he factored in those timings and those alterations, because we desired so much to do what he wanted.
Yeah,
So I yeah.
that's good. And not to discourage people from, excuse me, from a major wedding, but my way of thinking was, sometimes people have the traditional wedding, and everybody that's there to witness the wedding isn't for the wedding, and I didn't want to take that chance. So I said, babe, let's just make this happen. And as the ring later down the road, when we continue to get blessed by God, then we could have
Yeah, a
a wedding, a
celebration.
celebration,
Yeah.
a ceremony or something. But let's just make this happen and see what God has for us.
And that's the beauty of how can two walk together unless they agree. So we agreed on that. Maybe I'm not the average girl. I didn't really dream of like this
She's
huge
wonderful.
wedding.
She's not the average girl. She's superior.
Oh. Oh. Well, I think we pretty much touched on those questions. If you have any more, ask us. But really, what we want to put across, the purpose of why we're doing this is get in the will of God,
Yeah.
be in His timing, wait on His timing, and do what He's calling for you to do. And you'll have no doubt in your mind. Rather, you're in His will.
Yep. So this is what we have for this week. You keep God first and be blessed. We love y'all.
Have a great week.